Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Lower Paxton Township Board of Supervisors. We will call the meeting to order. Would like to ask everyone to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Mrs. Lindsay.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have no minutes to approve. Before we proceed with the workshop meeting, I would like to announce that the Board of Supervisors met in executive session prior to the meeting. We discussed a number of personnel and legal issues. With that, before we proceed to public comment, we do have one item of business left over from our reorganization meeting last week. We need to make a reappointment to the Lower Paxton Township Planning Commission. And with that in mind, we need to reappoint Jeff Klein to the Planning Commission, and the chair would entertain a motion to do so.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we appoint Jeff Klein as a representative to the Planning Commission.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. At this point, the board will entertain public comment on any item not on the agenda this evening. Does any member of the public wish to address the board on an item not on the agenda this evening? Okay, seeing none, we will proceed to discuss a proposal from Raftellus to provide additional stormwater fee implementation and other services to us. Good evening, Mr. Weaver.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. You have in your packet the stormwater fee implementation phase 3 proposal. My memo is pretty self-explanatory, as the board has been involved in this process for the last year with Raftellus, so I'll be brief and be happy to answer any questions you have. Essentially, this proposal is required to have Raftellus to continue to assist the township with the implementation and the post-go-live support of its new stormwater fee. As you're aware, the original Phase 2 proposal had a post-go-live date of January 1st, 2019. That stormwater fee implementation was delayed due to the time constraints, and we were billing July 1st. So therefore, the new Phase 3 proposal is carrying some of those tasks and some new tasks that staff, once we started drilling down in the fee and the components of the commercial accounts, what we call them the non-residential parcels. There's a lot of analysis that Raftellus has to do, lots of spreadsheets that are going to break down the multiple parcels and aggregate billing, that sort of thing. So task 1 through 10 essentially will assist staff to start billing July 1st, and then after billing, the latter task will get the data file to us for our historical purposes and also provide customer support. Essentially, that is my report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Do any members of the board have questions on the proposed additional consulting agreement?
I did forget to mention that not to exceed $64,000. I apologize.
And this, Mr. Weaver, nothing has changed since they outlined. This is not new, not surprising. This is kind of the timeline and the agreement that was outlined when we first began. The phases, the various
Correct.
phases set out.
Yes, the fee is established by the township and the authority. The authority ultimately established it with the stormwater budget of $32 a quarter, $128 a year. That was part of Phase 2 in the feasibility study. So you're correct. Nothing's changed. This, again, is just drilling down on the components of the billing.
Any additional questions? Any public question or comment?
And Mr. Weaver, staff is recommending.
Yes.
Okay, well, we have advertised action on said proposal, so is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve the stormwater fee implementation post-go live support as presented by Mr. Weaver.
So moved. Is there a second?
By Reft.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? There we go, Mr. Weaver.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now move to discuss the terms and conditions for the Carfax for the police program. And we will need tonight to authorize our Public Safety Director, Adam Kashiba, to execute the terms and conditions on behalf of the township. Mr. Gottschall, would you like to explain?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The director has brought to the board's attention the attached Carfax enrollment form, which would allow the Department of Public Safety to enter into this program, essentially giving the township's department access to Carfax crash data history, allowing the department to have very quick and ready access in terms of doing criminal investigations and things like that. It'll also decrease some internal administrative functions, allowing the department to continue in its charge for efficiency and reduce cost and things like that. There is no cost to the township for entering this program. And of course, Carfax will benefit from us being a part of the program by having access to the township's crash report history and investigations. So a number of surrounding municipalities also utilize the program to much success, and the township solicitor has taken a look at the forms and everything checks out.
Okay. So it passed muster with the township solicitor?
Had to make a couple of changes, but not too many.
Okay.
And they made them very willingly, so.
So they have agreed to all the changes, and we're in agreement as to what the agreement should be?
Correct.
And at no cost. That's the best part.
That's the best part. Any questions comments from board members? Any public
Anybody?
questions or comments? If not, it would be appropriate for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to approve the terms and conditions for the Carfax for Police program and to authorize Public Safety Director Adam Kashiba to execute the terms and the conditions on behalf of the township as presented by Mr. Gottschall.
Thank you, Mr. Chrisman. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Thank you. We now need to have another discussion on proposed ordinance 1901. And this regulates the use of consumer fireworks and displays. When last we talked about this, there were some court cases and legal changes. So, Mr. Stein, do you want to bring us up to date?
Yes, that there was a court case that struck down some of the provisions of this act, which this ordinance is modeled after. The big change was if you go to the second page, there's a definition for NFPA 1124. The court found that particular definition, as written, was unlawful because it gave away the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania's ability to legislate, or the power to legislate, because of three words. At the end of the sentence, it talks about what edition of the NFPA would apply, and it said at the very end, or any subsequent edition, which means that other editions would be used, but the legislature would have never acted upon them. So basically that was the thing in the act that was unlawful. So our definition would have to change as a result of that. But it really doesn't affect us in any other way. Mostly it affected the use of temporary structures for selling fireworks, because that's where that standard apparently applies. So that's and that doesn't really affect us. If you go to the third page, that's where we begin to talk about the use and regulation of consumer fireworks. There would be, I know in the last time we talked about this, there was a desire to perhaps make an amendment to number 7 of section 107.5, which discusses that consumer fireworks could not be used after 10 p.m. prevailing time or before 7 a.m. prevailing time, otherwise permitted by the township. And I know there was a desire to add something special in for 4th of July to perhaps make that time a little bit later. And I don't remember, but I know there was a discussion at one point in time to allow it for New Year's Eve as well.
Right.
Yes, yes.
So I just need to know exactly what time you would want in there. New Year's Eve, it probably would be a little after midnight, I would think, because that's when most people would desire to use consumer fireworks.
Right.
And then on the 4th of July, it wouldn't necessarily have to go that late, but if you want to give me some guidance on that, I'll be happy to change that particular provision. And then also, if you look in C, just below that, it talks about application for a permit. That had been put in when the ordinance was first redeveloped, and I don't know if the board actually desires to have to issue permits for consumer fireworks because they're not really displays. And if not, I can take that out, and it really won't affect the ordinance otherwise very much.
Yeah, I would think that we would want to make it 12:30 at least, if not 1 o'clock for New Year's Eve.
Okay.
Do you think 12:30 is
I think
sufficient?
12:30 is plenty, 1 o'clock's
12:30.
too late.
And for 4th of July, given the fact that it gets dark so late.
Right.
Could we move 10 to 11 o'clock just for the 4th of July?
Sure.
You don't really have that on any other.
Right.
And personally, I don't think the idea of having to issue permits for somebody shouldn't have to buy a permit to set off fireworks in their
Right.
backyard.
That can be-
Although they shouldn't be setting off fireworks in their backyard
No.
unless it's far enough away from.
That's correct.
There are very few backyards in our township which you can actually use consumer fireworks. I don't really support a permit, although, I mean, it would certainly help with, it would keep our police busy, because it'd be real easy, anywhere there's a fireworks display and we have a list of permits, it'd be real easy to figure out whether or not they should be going on. But I try to limit the amount of permits that we require in this township.
You then create the administrative need to issue the permits, and you then create the need to enforce the permits.
Exactly.
Right, but I mean, I will say, this whole exploration began this past year with the passage of an enactment of a new state law that allowed for the sale of consumer fireworks in Pennsylvania that were bigger, louder, that hadn't previously been permitted in Pennsylvania. So this was that was the first summer where we got to see the effect, and it was a little bit out of hand if you go by the complaints from residents. So we're still trying to adjust to that state law. So, we do the very least that we have to do, and then if it turns out we need to do more, then we can consider doing more. It really has to be said that with the limitations of 150 feet from an occupied structure, there aren't a lot of places in the township where you can be setting off these kind of fireworks, bottle rockets and such, that would be legal. And I don't think people really understand that part of the state law and the proposed ordinance. So this is going to be a work in progress. It was a bit of a shock to the system for a lot of residents this last summer. So we'll have to see how this goes. I always like the lightest touch possible, and then work from there. We can do a lot of public information campaigns and stuff like that. But we'll put the times in there for July 4th and January 1st, New Year's, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
Steve, I just had a question. You said about temporary structures. We do have the tents. Would that have anything to do? They set them up different places within the township, and that is a temporary structure.
Right. Well, they do. I mean, obviously, the people that sell fireworks desire to some want a permanent brick and mortar place, but some just want to do it from a tent that's along the roadside. So, but I don't know that it really affects our focus of this
Okay.
particular ordinance, because the fireworks law is already there and it would already regulate those.
Okay.
We just wanted to, the purpose of this ordinance was to beef up the use of the consumer fireworks and put a little bit more constraint so that it stays under control.
Okay, thank you.
Steve, as was originally discussed at one of our previous meetings by one of the constituents that I believe had some input in writing this bill,
That's correct.
it's a poorly written bill to begin with, and the state bill. And I don't know, I was somewhat under the impression that it's going to be reviewed and possibly amended.
That's my understanding.
Would it be in our best interest to table this until we find out for sure what the amendments are going to consist of and how it'll affect?
Right. Yeah.
Us.
This is actually for tonight. This is not up for any kind of consideration. I just wanted to report back to you on what I found, and then also make some suggestions for amendments, which then we can amend it, and then you can either let it sit for a while if you want to, or we can adopt it, and then if the legislature does go through and adopt a new version, we can look at that and maybe decide whether we want to get rid of this or adopt something different.
We could probably sit back until the 1st of May.
Absolutely.
Of course, for the legislature to do something by the 1st of May would be highly unlikely. They don't move that fast. But until we hit the summer patriotic holidays, it's probably not going to be much of an issue. We could get it prepared and then put it up for the 1st of May for adoption. If the legislature is moving in any way, we can decide what to do at that point. It might take them a year and a half or 2 years to get something done.
I don't know, on an amendment, it may not,
It might.
but I think it'd be worth our interest to at least check and find out.
Well, why don't we get it all prepared?
Okay.
And Brad, put it in the file for the first meeting in May, and we'll see where things stand and decide what to do at that point.
Sounds good.
I believe
I
our
agree.
new representative's having a town hall meeting in this building next month. It'd be a good opportunity to bring that subject up. I was planning to attend that. I could bring it up.
Yep. Sounds like a good
Absolutely
idea.
I just want to make sure we have something in place for Memorial Day.
Yes.
Because we did have a
Yes.
lot of complaints, last year because of the fireworks, so.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I missed your comment. Then.
I said I just want to make sure we have something in place for Memorial Day,
Oh,
because,
right.
yeah.
But we have it in May 1st, and we've got
Right.
something.
Yeah, there's not a lot of fireworks get set off in January and February, I hope.
Queen's birthday is not that due yet. The Queen's birthday. We always have fireworks for the Queen's birthday.
Well, we'll see if that becomes a problem. We can take that into
It is.
consideration.
That represents-
Okay, so anybody else have any comments? Thank you, Steve, for keeping a close eye on that. So
You're welcome.
we'll hold that over and revisit it the first meeting in May. And we now can move to item number 8, presentation review of an intermunicipal cost-sharing agreement with the County of Dauphin for the Bridge Bundling Program. Mr. Godshall.
Yes, sir. Members of the board, the board a number of months ago had received a primer, if you will, to the county's new bridge bundling program, and it got ready the township for a day in which we would receive a draft agreement. And just a week ago or so, the township received that agreement in draft form, and the township solicitor has been in contact with the county solicitor to clean up some language in the draft agreement. And at the next board meeting, the township should be in a position to act on that agreement, allowing us to enter into a partnership with the county and go ahead and move forward with the bridge bundling program. So as you can see in your packets, the county has outlined a schedule that we would follow once we enter into this agreement, and leads right up to construction of projects on bridges here in Lower Paxton Township. So for tonight's consideration, You could just take a look at the agreement and everything the county has laid out for you. And then at the next meeting, you can go ahead and act on approving that agreement.
Another important aspect after you would enter into this agreement is that you have to, within 30 days, tell the county how you're going to come up with the money for your part of it. It's a 60-40 split. The county pays 60%, the municipality would pay 40%, and you have to tell them whether it's going to be financed, whether it's going to be paid in cash, because there's going to be an escrow account set up for this money to be paid into by I think it's April of 2020. So,
I guess the question is, and where are we in the 30 days then?
well, we're not anywhere because we haven't adopted the agreement yet.
Okay, once we adopt.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
30 days after you adopt the agreement.
okay.
Do we know which bridges in Lower Paxton?
It's the McIntosh Road Bridge. If there's only one, it's called
There's only one.
LPT 2. It's over the McIntosh. It's on McIntosh Road, over not Paxton. It's Paxton Creek, I guess.
Yes.
Do we know what the cost of this bridge replacement?
We do. Let me just see if I can find it here quickly. The estimated cost total for the bridge is $825,700. The county's share would be $495,420, and the townships would be $330,280.
That's on page 11.
The goal of this program is to get rid of every deficient bridge in Dauphin County.
Right. And this has been going on for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, Steve, we had talked about a year ago, and I thought we did some engineering on the Red Top Road Bridge. Would that not be included?
That's not included in this. Because I think that project was, I think that was too far along to get into this program, if I recall
Okay.
correctly. So it's as far as I know, this particular agreement and what I've read, it only applies to the one bridge.
I was at a function Saturday morning where the commissioners were, and they said by 2020, they want all the bridges in Dauphin County, or 2021, they want all the bridges in Dauphin County taken care of.
That's correct.
Okay. So the only two bridges we have left are McIntosh and Red Top Road.
Well, I
that need
believe
to
that's
be-
correct.
That need to be
Yeah,
repaired.
because Jonestown Road was
Was
just
done.
got finished.
Okay,
Right.
okay, all righty.
Well, that's good news.
Yeah, they said 2021, they want
that-
all of them taken care of in Dauphin County. So-
Excellent. Okay, any additional questions or comments? Ought to know, update
Excuse
on
me, Mr.
PA
Chairman,
House Bill
question.
20, oh, excuse me.
Just a quick question. When are we going to take action for approval of that? Because then our 30 days will begin.
That's probably going to be the next meeting, I think. 'Cause
February
I have received an amended agreement.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I have
Oh,
received
okay.
that, so I've reviewed it. Brad, did Tucker send that to you as well?
No, I did not get a copy.
Okay, I'll make sure you get that.
So in theory, we should have it then for the agenda on the 5th.
Correct.
Okay.
Of February.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, then now we will move on to, bless you, to ought to know, and there's a PA House bill, and this has to do with issuance of new wireless orders by the Federal Communications Commission. Mr. Gottschall.
Yes, sir. Members of the board, in your packets, you have been provided with this email that we were given through the Cohen Law Firm that updates municipalities across the Commonwealth on the recent attempt by the state legislature to strip municipalities of the ability to regulate through zoning the placement of wireless poles and antennas within public rights of way. And also it would limit the municipality's ability to assess reasonable fees upon those applicants. And so that House Bill, PA House Bill 2564 failed to make its way out of committee last session. But the sponsors of the bill have vowed to bring like legislation back this session. Unfortunately, And so as we go forward, the board will certainly be given updates on that legislation as it makes its way through the legislature. But this attachment to your package does explain in decent detail, the bill and where it failed. So, which is good news for municipalities in the Commonwealth.
As a result of the new order by the FCC, Mr. Solicitor, are we required to make any changes to any of our ordinances?
In this memo that we got, Dan Cohen didn't really mention anything about that because I'm not familiar with the federal order that came out. But I know that Mr. Cohen has read it, and he does say in here if any municipality would like some assistance with their wireless ordinance, they're of course available to do that. Which that's all these people do is telecommunications. So I think it's worth your while to, if you're interested, have Brad contact him and see what they're offering, because there's these antenna systems. There's a lot of different kinds. Some of them are pretty large and obtrusive. Others are fairly small. So you really have to be careful. That some municipalities have gotten complaints from residents because I don't know if it was Verizon or who it was, just showed up one day and started sticking poles in the ground in the right of way in front of these people's houses because they say, hey, we have access to this right of way. We're going to put these in, which they did. So. And I don't want to blame Verizon if it wasn't them, but it was somebody that just did that, and everybody had a pole sticking, in their front yard. So that was kind of unpopular. So we should really, and I don't know that we have really much of a regulation on these types of, because they're what they're designed to do is make Wi-Fi broadband more available on a smaller scale. But I know some municipalities have had some issues with them.
And we're going to want the best broadband service. We're going to want the best convenience for everybody. The only reason townships and municipalities one of the reasons, keep an eye on this, is the number of these small cell towers. The industry itself says are going to be 10 times greater in 10 years. So there's going to be a lot more of them.
Well, we don't want them.
Showing up anywhere.
Yeah,
Well, I
I mean,
think-
just yes, plopping them in people's front yards.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that that Verizon has put some of these types of antennas up at some of our intersections on traffic signals. But they entered into an agreement with the township in order to do that.
I think a lot of this is in response to that new technology, G5 technology.
Correct.
And I think a lot of it has to do with health issues more than it does aesthetic issues.
Right.
A lot of people have and believe that I don't know whether it's radiation or whatever these towers or these antennas
Right.
put off has an ill effect on people's health. And that's a controversial issue right now that
Yeah, they're pretty intensive radio waves is what they are.
Yeah. And some of these people feel they have enough research and evidence to support not having them.
Right.
Well, so long as it doesn't cost us an inordinate amount of money in legal fees, I think it would be worth taking a look at our current ordinances in light of the new FCC order and see if our ordinance does protect our residents from having that happen to them.
Right.
So,
It doesn't hurt to collect information.
no.
So I don't have any problem even with contacting Cohen to find out what information might be available and what reviews would be required and at what cost.
Yes. Yeah. So Brad, if we can get that information from the Cohen Law Firm, because we certainly would prefer to take action to strengthen the ordinance now rather than have somebody do something that residents would strongly object to.
Absolutely.
And with good reason. Yeah. Okay. Anything else on this issue?
That's all I have.
Seeing none, we do have improvement guarantees.
6, we have 7.
And yes,
They all look,
escrows, letters of credit. To my knowledge, all of these are relatively routine.
none of them look like they're out of order. Mr. Gutschall, is there anything exceptional? I did not notice any.
There is not.
If there are none, Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve the 7 improvement guarantees with two releases, 3 reductions, and 2 extensions.
So moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I see nothing else on the agenda. Does any member of the board have additional comments they would like to make before we adjourn?
I just want to make a note that the board attended the Daywood Engineering Open House on Thursday, and I want to congratulate Mr. Daywood for bringing his business into Lower Paxton Township from the West Shore to the East Shore.
70 employees.
Is that what they said? 70 employees, yeah.
And
They
he
have a
was
beautiful building over there.
With passports.
And we did remind him of that several times during the course of the evening.
Yeah,
Well, at least I did.
yep.
It's always good to see people coming to the better East Shore, as the case may be.
And I did encourage them to not only establish their business here and thank them for their business, but perhaps they might want to establish their residencies within Lower
Yeah.
Paxton Township as well.
Talked to him also. I said, we have plenty of nice developments here, so.
That we do, and more on the way. Okay, if there's anything else? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.